Hi, my name is Miles, and welcome back to a second look, A Thieves Guild Part 2. We were discussing Thieves Guild, the Black Dagger Society, and we were going to talk about what this Thieves Guild actually does. We had already covered the basics of who would be in the Thieves Guild, how they would be staffed, and how they would be operated, how they'd appear in the city. The Thieves Guild, the Black Dagger Society, would, as I said, operate in a small to mid-sized city. And the reason that a city would want or even allow this sort of Thieves Guild to to be around and prosper is that the city would decide that it would be the one Thieves Guild. There would be no other Thieves Guild, no other criminal organization that would be tolerated in the city, and the city would turn a blind eye to this organization. In return, the Thieves Guild would be allowed to operate their criminal organization with relative freedom. The organizations they would be allowed to have would be relatively socially acceptable, kind of victimless crime type things. The all the tavern prostitutes and slatterns would belong to the Black Daggers. They would perhaps have a uh, a red zone area that they would be allowed to operate in. They'd have a gambling house. They would have any sort of fighting outfits where people would go and be able to bet on various fighters or cockfights or animal fights, that sort of thing that would be going on. Perhaps a small drug distribution ring, where basically people who wanted to take part in these criminal sort of organizations, these illicit vices, could go to these areas and take part in them. The city would have no part, and it wouldn't just be what a crime spree, and whatever criminals wanted to do these things could do them. What the city would also get out of it is it would be only the one organization, because the Black Dagger would be held responsible for any crimes that happened within the city limits. Thus, it would be on the Black Daggers to police and patrol any sort of crimes that happen. If a rash of break ins or robberies were to suddenly happen, or new prostitutes, something going on comes into the city, in all likelihood, rather than the town guard, you would have to deal with the Black Daggers Thieves Guild, who would have a much different look and a much different way of operating and handling outside criminals than the town guard would. Obviously, a much more dangerous, life-threatening way of handling these things. They would have resources to find who was doing what was going on, and there is no court, there is no judge, there is no jury, there is no law. You would be dealing with some very dangerous individuals. Thus, adventurers who come into town and thieves who start planning some sort of robbery. Maybe they're in town to do some sort of act that they've been hired to do, or what have you, would have to now encounter and deal with or avoid the black daggers, because they are the going to be the main problem. Not the simple town's guard, but experienced, knowledgeable, highly resourceful thieves guild that's going to be quite dangerous and is not going to take kindly at all to random thieves and lawbreakers coming into their city and messing with the great situation that they have. So this is going to be a problem, and this is how you would going. This is how a player party would run into the Black Daggers, outside of simply coming into a town and these people are going to be a problem. The black the Black Daggers would operate like a regular thieves guild, but in ways that we don't think about. For instance, we're familiar with thieves' cant, basically a secret language that thieves operate under. It's never really been fully explained, or that I know of, been fully explained, or how that would work. If you think about, as I discussed before, these other thief type organizations we see today, they actually have operating thieves' cant. You think of the Bloods and Crips, and you listen to the way that they talk. It's a huge, heavy slang that have all sorts of code words, that some of which we're familiar with. There's on your six, and one time, and all sorts of other things. This is Thieves' Cant. When you see in movies like Training Day, people they went into the projects, and there's a man on a roof clapping his hands, and each time he claps his hands a different way, the pigeons fly a different way or do a different thing. That's Thieves' Cant. That's is a way that the criminals are communicating with each other what is happening in their areas. They're talking about various crimes, but basically a secret language that criminals are using in this organization that only they know. Of course, many people in the area will understand at least some level of Thieves' Cant. There'll be we all are under today. I know what's being said when we talk about a 187. You know, there'll be some level of Thieves' Cant that we're all going to be familiar with, and everyone in that area will be familiar with. But for the most part, it's this organization that is creating their own words, secret handshakes, motions, or what have you, that will be their Thieves' Cant, and it will be constantly changing, constantly improving, constantly evolving. If you're going to use the Thieves' Cant per se, they will have a secret code that they will use with you and would not operate without you in the know. And it could take several hours for you to run through the proper process of how things work. Or just like again with the Bloods and Crips, they would have these incredibly complex handshakes that if you do a single part wrong, they simply understand that you are not part of this organization. It could be your death to mess up these handshakes. Or I'm sure you've all seen the finger flossing, whatever they do. Uh, they would be constantly changing, constantly evolving, new symbols. It would all be a Thieves' Cant. Um, Obviously, you can feel free to throw in whatever sort of symbolism, words, codes that you would have that you would use in your campaign. But this Thieves' Cant wouldn't simply be a code language they'd use among themselves. They would simply speak in Thieves' Cant. Again, when you picture some of these mob enforcers, you see them in the movies, the way they speak isn't simply Italian. It is an Italian street criminal slang that they're using. And that's what the Black Daggers would be heavy with. Because they would be a city street criminal organization. And that's where they would get most of their members from. And this is how they would operate. Anyway, I think we've gone through just about everything we could in talking about the creation of this Thieves Guild. Please, this is for DMs of experienced players, a new way to do an encounter or have an adventure with your players that they're not going to be familiar with, something that they're not going to have experienced before, and a new, fun, and interesting way to engage your players. It should be new for them. Take any part of this and change it up for your campaign. You have my permission. I hope it's helpful, and please, if this is something that was helpful for you and that you enjoyed and you'd like to see more of, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Please tell me anything that you would like to have discussed or gone over, and I will take it into consideration. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. And please tune in for another episode of A Second Look.